메토질라 로용와나 존나 냐오기 차담 란도 이르나 메짱 스톰지 그 장락 왕친 로르드 돈디 styოში 일란 코리앙 샤탑당 잔드 대진 챈더 짐비스티오이 조장 쳬덕 포니 담 몬섬담 통세 쳬치 버메 쇼페 양츠르랍삼닌 교친 냥람 체짱 쇼라만남 랑당 한지키 像测这个苏不让领的样开始让往进面呐，你们这龙须南给各族人这样，他们的晓得热呢，他们的晓得今年容易一路人，头一村地是不康上面的忙不，没等将人些米碰波人这个比那次人的拉特些人么子激荡，两个那啦人吃落波人讲的，让人怕当米波养米几人啦。Vermet sendere neriang trip mawshon. Dagjan chirtar batjan tenjale mevshir zabmu hachu jomna gatsu chigmanam. Certo da jarde mambo cermet ki trogred. Terang chibi trogjan sanin yi tisa. Chogchu da shit da kirwa chipa ji yenna janin nipa mela chagdan gi chipshat. Rang li ki kepi wupchika tsognam. Rang tam shnyang tam ژن د خچیرګي کېانجان نامجګ لیست بر زغنه چلند ریدي پانمد یچت کېوي نو ماجمن لانڅو نامنیم لانڅو ناتو نیامبي ناچونڅو پانڅن زمبي زرم یوي کارتب لام چامجن یمتن نګ لا ینران جوبالار مویا خچیرګ چګون ماشي نیانجي کېفشون ینران جوبا ینران جونګي میپی کېنچګ زاڅان 총dim rombo jenda yetzmlan tsogdyang shngum sag leji rechik nimet chatti panzin garson doryot shugzam yamashi lamam chogdan mamjin jongdo ji yokyang shngum sag leji kopa sijik yeblogni köshig monlan joki ndawa nam songshir dorjim chetsog dayam jarngi jingman kongur jihun kirkyam nitabna mandu Goko yirde kyang ngati na kamo khuryu shab jang dala tripti jing mevshir wagyang lobde ngang de nyartsu jingman jawo chirtar tar jang chemang le magda nyemjir shambe kyang gardig na chemang zangi zemang zuyang maksang noma tanam dome chongbu shotsir la jeran parla nyamjin kyang we yimthin Chogkyang tsirlam ngonshkuk mepar gatsu chig member korong lortse nachong sarwa lakton dig chogmek chigbar dana kipo ramana kipo jig mannam tsir
Today we're actually going to talk about the important Song of Renunciation indeed, so then aren't we all ready? Hey there, why aren't you saying anything at all? This rather old monk is a little bit mischievous, you know, just quietly pretending not to speak, right? Kind old monk, old quiet old Ani. Who's the really old Ani? Whenever I mention old Ani, everyone always gets a little bit upset. That's just truly how it simply is. Isn't that right? Just kidding. There's absolutely no old here, no old at all. Now let us truly begin. We will discuss the profound Song of Renunciation by the revered His Holiness, the most precious wish-fulfilling jewel. Actually, this famous Song of Renunciation really seems very quite simple at first quick casual glance. The original language isn't that particularly difficult or complex to understand either. It's not too awkward to read out aloud. Furthermore, it possesses a distinctive and profound aesthetic style that is deeply in line with the rich and intricate poetics of Tibetan Buddhism. So it's also very pleasant and quite enjoyable indeed to read. In the past, these great masters and accomplished teachers while diligently practicing and profoundly attaining spiritual realization themselves, and at the same time compassionately guiding countless sentient beings, would often spontaneously compose truly deeply meaningful dohas. We've previously studied some of these profound compositions from various esteemed teachers here before, the Song of Renunciation and the Song of Realization, as well as some of their songs of impermanence, and many, many other similar examples just like these. After we have carefully studied them, sometimes studying the great sutras and treatises, of course, this profound wisdom brings us tremendous and invaluable benefits. However, sometimes when we learn and deeply contemplate these sacred teachings, when we carefully study some scattered dohas or profound recitations, we quite naturally and organically gain certain profound and meaningful insights. This includes masters like Patrul Rinpoche, Mipham Rinpoche, and the omniscient Longchenpa, as well as the Venerable Sakya Pandita and the revered Master Tsongkhapa, and also the esteemed 3rd, 4th, and 6th Karmapas, among many other respected spiritual leaders. They all possess numerous collections of teachings and spiritual instructions. After studying these, it seems to greatly benefit our own spiritual mind stream. This time, in our short period together, we have used the teachings of the precious His Holiness. So today and yesterday, as we mentioned earlier, the main focus has been on status and wealth. Perhaps the precious His Holiness, when it comes to the topic of wealth and money, he gave quite a few profound teachings on this important subject. Yesterday, several insightful verses explained that when people possess considerable wealth, they should diligently do more virtuous and meritorious deeds. One should not become overly attached to it, nor should one commit negative actions. That is the intended meaning. It does not mean that we should give up all our wealth entirely, or that we should not earn money, or that we should not accumulate wealth. Especially for ordinary lay people, it is indeed quite necessary to make a living and sustain themselves. If we want to live, we absolutely cannot survive without these essential resources. Therefore, as Buddhists, we certainly do not deny these fundamental realities. For monastics, it is also profoundly true that apart from the essential necessities for their own personal livelihood, they truly do not need anything else at all whatsoever. If one does not possess pure precepts or the merit of study and contemplation in their own mind stream, and yet indulges recklessly in offerings from the faithful, there are very serious faults in doing so. Therefore, when lay followers make offerings, if the monastics are truly engaged in activities that spread the Dharma and benefit sentient beings, then making offerings for these purposes, there is nothing wrong with it. But aside from this, if one enjoys these offerings for personal pleasure, then it may not really have much actual significant real-world importance. Unless it is a truly awakened being, a great master or a great bodhisattva, in whose mind stream all the knots of afflictions and cognitive obscurations have almost completely and utterly disappeared from existence, and whose newly awakened qualities now allow them to fully and truly enjoy the offerings from the faithful or the wealth left by the deceased, as well as any other kinds of wealth, directly and without issue. If one has reached such a state, then it should be entirely acceptable and perfectly fine. Aside from this crucial point, monastics should be even more profoundly mindful and deeply aware of this significant aspect. This is something our precious and revered guru, our spiritual teacher, often mentioned in many of his teachings as well. So today, as we talk about the profound concept of impermanence, it means that our deep attachment to this fleeting worldly life, our intense craving for the temporary pleasures of this material world, if we do not truly understand the nature of impermanence, it is absolutely, truly pitiable. The small, diligent bees, deeply and contentedly savoring the sweet golden nectar, even though they truly do not wish to ever leave the beautiful and flourishing garden where they have spent so much time, when the sudden, chilling, and relentless cold autumn wind abruptly arrives, are then filled with a profound sense of sorrow and utter helplessness. Here, what this truly means is that the busy bees that carefully taste and slowly, gently savor the sweet nectar of beautiful flowers, because, especially in the Tibetan mountainous area where wildflowers grow, the beautiful mountains are covered with vibrant wildflowers during summer, and among the vast and beautiful wildflowers one can discover all kinds of truly vibrant, wonderfully colorful, and exquisitely delicate blossoms. The diligent and busy bees gracefully make their way into these enchanting gardens, where they joyfully and thoroughly enjoy collecting the sweet, rich nectar from the abundant and fragrant flowers. This truly symbolizes an especially happy, joyful, and blissful life. As for these tiny bees, Even though they are quite unwilling to depart from such a truly beautiful garden, they continue to truly enjoy it to the fullest. But when late autumn truly comes, at the very end of the autumn season, when the biting cold wind finally arrives, bringing with it a distinct chill, no matter how much they want to stay, there's nothing they can do. In this regard, I have a lot of experience. I used to often take cattle up the mountain to graze. In the summer, I would see the mountainsides completely covered with vivid blooming wildflowers everywhere. It was especially beautiful. At that time, there were especially many bees. They would constantly and joyfully continue to enjoy the sweet nectar from the beautiful flowers. It truly certainly looked like heavenly paradise. The peaceful sound of their harmonious buzzing was also incredibly beautiful and quite pleasant to hear. They flew around so wonderfully freely and deeply relaxed. But when fierce autumn approached, all the delicate petals would eventually fall, wither, and dry up. As for the bees, one by one, some of them would die inside the hive, and some beneath the flowers. Usually, by late autumn, many bees, quite pitifully, have all sadly perished and ultimately passed away and died. So when I was herding cattle and watching them in the summer, seeing these bees flying back and forth, I couldn't help but think, wow, in just about another month or two, they will all be gone. So many bees, it's really sad, because their lifespan can only last for a summer. It's impossible for them to live longer. In winter, not a single bee can survive. This is a very good metaphor for impermanence. In the same way, the meaning here is to clearly show that we are attached to our worldly things, such as wealth, status, reputation, and emotions, and all sorts of other things that people consider truly very good indeed in their own life. Such people, in actual fact, truly don't really have any profound thought at all at this very moment, like, I too will eventually die. What should I actually do when I die? What happens after death? They never think about things. People in the world today, it's difficult to talk to them about Dharma. If you talk about renunciation, none listens. If you talk about bodhicitta, fewer listen. You see, bodhicitta is difficult. I want to liberate sentient beings and attain Buddhahood. With a mind as selfish as mine, if I want to become a Buddha, it's truly not so easy for such a thought to arise. Then if I want to renounce, if I want to be free from the cycle of rebirth in the three realms, many people don't even have the view of the human and heavenly realms. That is to say, they don't even have the intention of humanistic Buddhism. They're very pragmatic. Can you truly help me change my entire mindset? Can you genuinely help me get rich immediately right now? Nowadays, many people who study Buddhism want immediate and tangible results in their daily lives, as if they're taking a sleeping pill or a painkiller. If their life truly changes right away, then they think, wow, this blessing is really powerful. This Lama is amazing. Can you give me another blessing? Oh, that day when you blessed me, I felt so comfortable inside. But I had a very high fever all through the night. People who are like this truly enjoy it, you know. But when it comes to talking about what the next life is truly like, or being reborn into the pure land of ultimate bliss, they probably don't feel anything at all. Many of us who are truly attached to this life are like this now, carefree and at ease, very relaxed and complacent. But after you die, when you inevitably encounter the truly ugly-faced and terrifying minions of the formidable Lord of Death, when you are confronted by them, what will you truly think of at that precise and critical moment? Attached to this life, seeing the wrathful messengers of death with glaring eyes, looking back on a lifetime of carelessness and feeling deep regret, isn't it already too late? When you look back, what do you remember? You will remember that throughout your entire whole life you didn't really practice or study diligently at all, indeed truly very much. Even though you encountered a good teacher, received the Mahayana teachings, and obtained especially profound instructions, you should have been able to practice. You had such a good opportunity and chance. But because of your own ignorance and your busyness and all sorts of other reasons, every single day in this vast world was unfortunately spent on truly meaningless and utterly trivial matters. And in the end, your incredibly precious and irreplaceable life was completely and irrevocably used up. So at this very moment, you will definitely feel a deep and profound sense of regret. You might truly think, if he carefully considers, oh, after I die, I might indeed fall into the lower realms. There might be absolutely no liberation at all. Originally, in this very life, I was born in Jambudvipa, which should actually be a land of karma. If I had practiced virtuous deeds throughout my life, then at the very least I would be reborn in a good realm or attain liberation. There shouldn't have been any problem with that. Many of the great masters and accomplished beings of the past also relied on a lifetime of effort to achieve realization and attain the state of Vidyadhara. In this regard, I dare not say anything about myself. I don't even have the confidence that I won't be reborn in a lower realm. So many people, when they are dying, feel extremely, extremely regretful and think, I truly didn't practice well enough. They deeply feel their entire life was utterly wasted in vain. What an immense pity. But by that crucial time, it's already far too late to change anything. At that moment, you might think some people regret it at the time of death, while others feel regret when they stand before the messengers of Yama, the Lord of Death. Of course, some of us now actually, especially those who have studied materialism and atheism and have received such an education. Some people who have grown up under this kind of education may not be entirely clear about the details of the next life, and they seem to have some significant doubts and uncertainties about its true nature. Such people are basically unable to prepare for or practice for the next life. Generally speaking, those Buddhists who have true and genuine faith, they often have a clearer understanding. Sometimes I see people in Tibetan area, particularly those who are uneducated, for example, some elderly people, some devotees, they have genuine faith. Just now at the entrance, there was an elderly man, probably in his 70s or 80s, standing there. He gave me 10 yuan and said, "You must dedicate the merit for all sentient beings throughout the boundless world." I thought 10 yuan is really not a very large amount, but his pure intention was truly, truly deeply sincere. We're definitely not joking about actually charging a teaching fee for this, but even using 10 yuan to accumulate merit. He would think of all sentient beings in the boundless world. This makes us reflect, for example, when we go to a temple, to a Buddhist institute or in front of a Buddha statue and make an offering of 10 yuan, 100 yuan, or 1,000 yuan. At such times, do we ever think about benefiting countless sentient beings, all beings in the world? Perhaps most of us think, my stomach hurts, my heart isn't well, Bodhisattva, please bless me. I'm in a bad mood. Maybe that's how many people feel. So according to some profound and insightful ideas within Mahayana Buddhism, or more specifically, in terms of the underlying motivation that drives actions, nowadays some of our respected and wise elders truly and genuinely, even though they are uneducated, they genuinely have a very strong faith. This kind of faith is also especially well suited to the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism. Although they may be illiterate and lack formal education, the path that they have chosen is truly a noble one. Even though some of us are currently college students or dedicated PhD candidates, whether we've studied abroad in some other countries or perhaps even traveled and so on, we tend to think of ourselves as quite remarkably unique individuals. Even the very way we walk, our overall posture, is distinctly different. We feel like we're number one in the world, that kind of feeling. But what exactly is our true mindset, and what is our underlying motivation really like deep down? Can we genuinely and wholeheartedly dedicate all of our accumulated merits for the ultimate benefit of many sentient beings? It is genuinely quite challenging to definitively say whether we truly accomplish this or not. Some people, if they're attached to this life, will also regret it at the time of death. Of course, those who don't believe in cause and effect, they might not actually have anything to regret or not regret at all in the end, right? Now, let's talk about, this is what we just discussed, the faults of being attached to this life. Next, we'll talk about our bodies and our loved ones, including some of the things we enjoy. This aspect also points to impermanence. Born with us and nurtured throughout our lives, even our own bodies are not truly ours to take along with us. Relatives and loved ones are as numerous as the stars, but when we go, we leave them all behind and go alone. Here it says on born with us, the body that we have painstakingly nurtured throughout our entire lives, our very own body, actually, this body made up of our own flesh and bones, this bag of skin. When the day of our inevitable death ultimately comes, we also have to completely abandon it. There's absolutely no way to truly take it with us. Just like what Patrul Rinpoche says in The Words of My Perfect Teacher, when we eventually die, all our friends and relatives, all our possessions and so on, everything, absolutely everything, is left behind in this world. As for ourselves, it's like a strand of hair being pulled out from butter, not stained in the slightest. Just like a single delicate hair being gently plucked out from a soft yielding block of butter, we head toward the next life. That's exactly what is being said here as well. When we die, even what we were born with, from the very first moment we came into this world, from our dear mother's womb, the physical body we have painstakingly cared for throughout our entire life, the body we have painstakingly cherished and carefully cared for. Many people nowadays are extremely attached to their bodies. Whether they are wealthy or not, they are always thinking about their bodies every day, how to properly maintain it, how to effectively protect it, and how to take beneficial, healthy supplements, how to take nutritional supplements, all sorts of things like that. Day and night, they're thinking about how to take care of their bodies. But this body, it won't last forever, will it? When the time eventually comes, it too will be left behind. Once the consciousness departs, this physical body will also decay. So it certainly can't last for a very long period of time. We certainly can't take our physical bodies with us either. If we truly can't even take our physical bodies with us, then what about our relatives and friends? Or all the wealth and treasures we've accumulated for our own enjoyment? Even if we have a lot of these things, as many as the stars in the sky, some wealthy people may have especially many dependents, especially celebrities, those individuals with significant status and considerable wealth, perhaps as numerous as the countless stars in the vast night sky. They may have countless dependents, thousands upon thousands. Nowadays, some celebrities and high-ranking officials truly have an extraordinary number of followers. But when you die, all of them are truly left behind in this world. You go to the next life completely alone. Born alone, die alone, go alone, come alone, just as it is clearly and precisely described in the Infinite Life Sutra. At that very moment, none of us can truly take anything at all with us. At this particular time, we can reflect on this important point. Each person can observe for themselves the reality of the situation. Each and every one of us will inevitably face death one day, but when precisely that ultimate demise will actually come to pass, we ourselves cannot know for sure. So the exact time of death is completely uncertain. Death itself is absolutely certain, but the precise time and specific cause of death are both totally uncertain. With this important reality in mind, we can deeply consider should we truly protect our bodies? Yes, we certainly should. Should we also protect our dependents and our valuable wealth? That is also necessary. But we must not become overly attached or greedy. If we become too attached and greedy, it is actually of no use. When the time comes, we will still have to leave this body, and we will also have to leave our loved ones behind, as well as all the wealth we have painstakingly accumulated. In fact, when it comes to wealth, many people are deeply attached to it. While you are still alive, you can certainly use it, but once you inevitably leave this world, all the wealth you have accumulated, you could say it ends up being shared by your 5 enemies, or in other words, it is enjoyed by others. So the wealth that we people in this world currently enjoy now, in fact, many individuals are quite reluctant to spend on essential food or clothing, and instead they accumulate it in this particular way. But later, due to various causes and conditions, it ends up in our hands, and we use it. All the wealth we have in our hands now, after some time, these resources will inevitably also flow into the hands of others. It's just like the continuous movement of water in a river. A river keeps flowing from one place to another, constantly moving and changing its course. And so it is with our money and the wealth of this world. It is constantly circulating. This profound awareness is something that all Buddhists should also truly have. Among the teachings we are discussing now, the principles being explained here, you may not necessarily agree with everything presented. For every sentient being, there are indeed different teachings that are carefully tailored to their specific and individual needs. However, for each statement, you are also encouraged to reflect deeply and thoughtfully on it. Why is it said this way, if it's expressed like this? What exactly does it truly mean for our own daily practice? At such challenging times, you really shouldn't be too pessimistic. As I mentioned at the very beginning yesterday, the renunciation mind in Buddhism is not truly like the pessimists in the world today in any way, shape, or form. Pessimists, in the end, many famous people, because they were too pessimistic, found themselves with absolutely no viable way out and ultimately ended up taking poison or even tragically shot themselves to death or jumped off buildings to commit suicide and so on. Such are the pessimists. But the renunciation mind in Buddhism fully and completely understands the true nature of all things, all phenomena, including the fundamental truths of our daily lives. Once you fully understand this essential truth, you are not overly attached or greedy. But when there is something you should work hard at, even so, you will still find yourself doing it. It's not like some Buddhists in the contemporary world nowadays who seem to be excessively pessimistic in a manner that is excessively pessimistic, having poor relationships with their families, not working properly, not giving rise to a truly good sense of motivation, and feeling very especially sad every single day, and then not even reading properly, just reciting a few mantras, and in the end what they call retreat. Even when in retreat, they don't really practice properly either. They spend every day crying in pain, and some Buddhists are really quite abnormal. This is not what it means to be a true Buddhist. This is not true renunciation. In many of his teachings, Patrul Rinpoche also said that genuine renunciation actually means we can possess all the wisdom of worldly people and be fully equipped with it. For someone with true renunciation, worldly life should be truly and completely acceptable. It's not that all of the worldly people who are in conflict or opposition with them. It shouldn't be like that. So, in the behavior of some Buddhists, it is absolutely necessary to have wisdom and skillful means. Otherwise, after we earnestly start practicing Buddhism, some people around us will carefully and closely observe our behavior and actions. After watching how you act, they might notice that you used to be a very optimistic, truly happy, and genuinely joyful person. Whether it was your way of dressing or your lifestyle, you were someone positive and upbeat. But after taking up Buddhism, it seems like your words and actions not only fail to have a truly positive or genuinely encouraging effect on others, but instead they bring others a profound sense of fear and deep intimidation, or even make them quite scared and deeply apprehensive. They might genuinely think, "Oh, I really shouldn't practice Buddhism, or I'll definitely end up just like him. He used to look so incredibly good, so truly dignified, and absolutely everything he did was always admirable. But ever since he started diligently practicing Buddhism, it's as if he's truly become like a destitute beggar." There are indeed many significant aspects like this that we still need to carefully consider and pay close attention to. Wouldn't you agree? Now let's move on and talk about majestic decoration. This mainly refers to houses. Next, let's look at architecture. Majestic decorations and beautiful mansions ultimately cannot remain stable and will turn into ruins. When you carefully contemplate this, your attachment to pleasurable environments naturally fades away, especially those that are grand and magnificent. And many truly beautiful homes that are so exquisitely decorated and elegantly furnished, like some grand majestic palaces and certain magnificent stunning buildings, they look particularly, especially, absolutely impressive. But in the very bitter end, none of them are actually really completely stable. Looking back at history, some have already turned into ruins. They used to be indeed quite magnificent, but later on, however, though, due to the passage of time or other causes and conditions, they became ruins. If we carefully and thoroughly consider this in detail, if we truly reflect and deeply contemplate on this entire situation, we will realize that the objects of our strong worldly attachment are really nothing truly worth clinging to. For example, today I might possess a beautifully decorated house. My house is now fully renovated, 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. I really want to invite a teacher to bless it, to give it blessings. I'm about to move in there very soon, and I can clearly see that there's even a dedicated Buddha hall, and something else quite interesting and noteworthy as well. Now we too can, because in this human world of ours right now, we are very much attached to our very own personal things, indeed, just like a bustling beehive. We're really quite attached, aren't we? No matter what kind of property you choose to buy, some people opt for villas, while others purchase different types of residences. In this way, everyone is very attached. This is also normal. In Buddhism, we really don't oppose this. Now, in Tibetan area, we often indeed do a bit of renovation on many quite small houses, actually, and then invite a lot of people over, just by simply sticking some decorative things on the pillars, then proudly saying, "I've renovated my house. Please come to visit for a meal." But when inviting guests, everyone is expected to give me a little money as a gift. This is actually a very rather unhealthy situation nowadays. As people, there's truly nothing wrong with it at all, in fact. But you need to know that if you become especially attached to it, there's probably no real need for it at all, actually. Take, for example, some of the most magnificent and historically significant palaces in human history, such as the awe-inspiring Angkor Wat, which was once widely considered to be one of the original 7 wonders of the ancient world. In the very beginning, it was a church, similar to a temple. Later, after many dynasties of Angkor, it was turned into a royal palace. Actually, back then, although technology wasn't as advanced as it is now, the architecture of that time was still very distinctive, indeed quite unique. Now, when we go and see it, wow, we truly feel like it was really a complete waste of our valuable time. There are indeed many situations just like this one. Some time ago, I distinctly recall seeing in some materials that the current US President, Donald Trump, has a grand building in busy New York with more than 60 spectacular floors, called the well-known Trump Tower. Everything above the 66th spacious floor is for his extended family's own comfortable enjoyment. All of the furniture found inside, crafted from pure 24-karat gold. He also possesses another luxurious villa located somewhere else entirely. Honestly, not only do we not envy him, we even feel that, wow, this 70-year-old man now is still so attached to these things. He especially loves gold, especially loves these things. Then I thought to myself, oh, how wonderful it would be to realize emptiness. If he had realized emptiness, he might not be so extremely attached to these things. Actually, there have been many such cases throughout history. For example, the Daming Palace in ancient China, right? 17 powerful emperors of the Great Tang Dynasty worked there. It should be located in the historical area of Xi'an. It's widely said that, historically speaking, it lasted for an impressive 234 years, spanning over a significant period of 234 years. There were a total of 22 emperors in the entire Tang dynasty. 17 of those emperors conducted their affairs there. It was especially magnificent. You could truly say it was resplendent in shimmering gold and precious jade, truly extraordinary. If you carefully look at some historical records and ancient relics, it was indeed really quite impressive. But in the end, tragically, it was all completely reduced to desolate ruins in the devastating flames of war. Sometimes, when we look at the world around us, or at some particularly splendid and magnificent buildings, we might consider constructing a small, dedicated scripture hall, or perhaps just a tiny, humble structure for contemplation and reflection, like our own little Buddha hall. Once my Buddha hall is finished, today Vajra Dharma friends are coming over to my place, and I feel a certain way about it. Actually, it's necessary for us to do this, everyone, but we shouldn't get too attached or greedy about it. Even the most solid and magnificent things in the world, including those magnificent and historically significant structures found throughout Europe, there are so many truly remarkable and awe-inspiring buildings meticulously constructed by powerful emperors and influential kings of the past. But as the relentless march of time swiftly flies by and centuries pass, in the end, they all eventually turn into something. Some become solemn memorial halls, while others simply become desolate ruins. When we truly think about these profound things, it genuinely seems there's really nothing worth being overly attached to or clinging onto. In this regard, I think I'm doing okay. Whenever I see a building or anything else of that particular nature, I don't develop attachment. Oh, this house is pretty nice. But then I think, well, it's impermanent. At first glance, it might seem, wow, this is really great. For example, when I visit a monastery, if the monastery is built exceptionally well and cost hundreds of millions to construct. Nowadays, many monasteries in the Han region are impressive, costing hundreds of millions. The old monk is also extremely happy about it.
I spent a quite substantial sum of 150 million yuan on this, and I've been constantly, tirelessly working on it for 23 years. Over these 23 difficult years, relying on my faithful followers, on the merits of my dear disciples, I successfully managed to build it.
But then, looking back later, even the old venerable monk has ended up like this. These hundreds of millions of dollars aren't really that impressive after all. I say, oh, that's truly, truly impressive. Sometimes I put on a pretty good act. Wow, your merit is truly immeasurable. Wow, that's absolutely great. It appears so incredibly solid. But when you take a closer look at it, is it genuinely that solid and robust? Not necessarily. It might not be as firm as it initially seems, right? That's really how it is. When it really comes to certain things in the world, we still need to go along with worldly ways and do things as they should be done. But in our hearts, we need to understand, whether it's your own house or someone else's important building, everyone involved should clearly know what it is precisely made of. After a few decades have passed, or perhaps even a few hundred years, in another 20 years from now, when we eventually meet again, right? And then what happens? We'll be off to the funeral home, where a small pile of ashes will be designated for you, and a similar pile for me, all completely burned and reduced to mere ashes. A pile for you, a pile for me, and no one truly knows anyone anymore. Back then, we even made this into a truly memorable song, a real classic. So in another 20 years, who knows what these buildings will look like, or what we ourselves will become. Everyone should have an awareness of impermanence. Now, the 16th verse says, our revered fathers and forefathers in the end achieved absolutely nothing of lasting significance. Even if I myself seek diligently again, I will still gain absolutely nothing, the same as them. If I now diligently practice the subtle Dharma, isn't that an immense and genuine joy? Here, it explicitly says, my own father, my father's own father, and so on, and all of the many preceding generations who came before them in time, all the way up through these people above me. All those countless people above me, for example, my grandfather's grandfather, my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, and so on, grandfather, and his grandfather, all these people. In fact, each of them was once young. Each individual had their own unique pursuits in life, and all diligently worked hard to establish their own families, their distinct lineages, and so on. They also made efforts. They also had their own dreams and ideals too, but now, tragically, all those cherished things related to samsara have vanished. None of them were accomplished. And in the end, they all passed away without having fulfilled them, leaving this world behind. So I am the same way. Now, I am also truly following in the significant footsteps of my predecessors' lives, for example, starting my own family, and indeed building a career, and constantly striving for a much substantially better and more thoroughly fulfilling life in this world. But in the end, not only might I fail to achieve anything, but I might even accumulate very great negative karma in the cycle of samsara and continue to drift endlessly in the lower realms, which is a real possibility. So sometimes when we look at this, we see that even up to today, many people among us humans, although they place great importance on worldly matters, sometimes our ways of living may be slightly different. For example, our grandfather's grandfather, he probably didn't have a mobile phone back then, nor did he have all kinds of modern appliances we have today. But his way of life at that time, he was still truly attached to it, whether it was agriculture, industry, animal husbandry, or commerce. But for him, at that time, it was exactly the same as it is for me now. He was also especially attached to it. There were emotions, there was life, and everything else. But in the end, he also left this world. After leaving this world, did he really leave anything behind for me? Everyone should be clear about this. So sometimes when we think about these things, it is still worthwhile to cultivate the profound Mahayana bodhicitta, emptiness, and the supreme, wondrous Dharma, and so on. In that case, isn't that even better? Because if we practice in a truly excellent way with bodhicitta, in this future, we won't have to continue to cycle through samsara, and so forever. There will be a chance for liberation, to attain undefiled wisdom. Defiled suffering and defiled happiness, these are both present. They pass by especially quickly. Do we have happiness in our current reality? We admit that there is indeed happiness. Whether we're eating a delicious meal or traveling to various places, in all aspects of our reality, this kind of defiled happiness does exist. But this kind of defiled happiness leaks away in a very short period of time, and then it's completely and utterly gone. So, just like countless truly accomplished masters before us, if we truly attain perfect, pure, undefiled wisdom and genuine happiness, then that is undoubtedly absolutely the most safest. Now, the important 17th verse clearly says, an enemy in youth, a friend in old age, today's close friend, tomorrow's killer. Thus, friend and foe are never certain. What use are attachment and aversion? When I was young, the kind of enemy I hated with an irreconcilable grudge, it seems that by the time I reached old age, we could actually become truly very close, deeply intimate friends, very much the closest and most trusted of companions indeed. In the not-so-distant, bitter past, we even wanted to assassinate each other, but after various different evolving circumstances and numerous transforming causes, we ended up becoming the best of friends. And today's very best friend, that is to say, someone who is truly inseparable from you, extremely close indeed, even going to the bathroom together, utterly unable to be apart, with an especially good and deep relationship, but by tomorrow, for all sorts of reasons, even over some trivial matters, we might actually potentially turn into real rivals or even become assassins to each other, becoming bitter, sworn enemies. So, such intense closeness and deep enmity are actually quite uncertain. In this complex world we live in, today's good friend could very well become tomorrow's formidable enemy, and today's enemy could very well become tomorrow's friend. In this way, our attachment to ourselves and hatred toward others is actually unnecessary. We should deeply understand that in this continuous cycle of samsara, this endless wandering through birth, death, and rebirth, we shouldn't become overly attached to transient things. Don't point out others' faults. If you criticize someone today, you might regret it tomorrow and end up apologizing in front of them. It's the same with countries internationally now. Regarding countries, I think they're just like two individuals. In the past, Russia and the United States had a particularly bad relationship, but now it seems they're working together to fight terrorists. And their relationship isn't bad at all. In the past, China and North Korea got along quite well. When we were young, we watched movies every day about how North Korean volunteers came to China and so on. Now it seems there are all sorts of things happening as well. For example, the relationship between India and China can be good, and the relationship between the US and Japan can be good too. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. All of these are matters of interest. Churchill once said, "There are no permanent friends, nor permanent enemies, only permanent interests." What he said is indeed quite also very true. Between countries, it's always about interests. As long as there are genuinely shared interests, things tend to go quite well. But if one's own vital interests are significantly harmed, then things will inevitably go very badly. It's precisely the same between people too. Especially in today's realistic and often challenging society, that is to say, nowadays in particular, I truly feel that many interpersonal relationships between people are far too focused on personal interests. Everyone is always constantly thinking, is there any benefit? If there is, their relationship improves. If there's absolutely no benefit, then the relationship isn't good. And if you don't talk about interests, genuine feelings or relationships between people are actually very rare. If you do have that kind of relationship, then it's truly and genuinely sincere and incredibly precious, right? So this also makes us think that sometimes, whether it's about feelings or relationships between people, they really are quite impermanent. Today, for example, if you're in a very good mood, by tomorrow, it just might be different. Indeed, even a seemingly insignificant small thing can profoundly and completely alter your entire mindset from what it was previously. And prior to the attainment of true realization, people's mindsets can often change with remarkable and exceptional quickness. This is something even we ourselves can't control. Sometimes wise people might really say, based on my own personal experience, I truly can't necessarily maintain my mindset consistently. It might indeed change, and that's the honest truth. The esteemed Gendon Chompul also wisely said, he profoundly stated, from childhood up to today, our mindset has already changed countless times. So our own mind isn't really reliable at all, meaning there's no true or genuine sense of security whatsoever. Now let us turn our attention to the 18th verse. The many beloved children born directly from one's own body, those who are cherished and meticulously cared for, are held as precious as the most invaluable treasure of one's heart. When they grow strong and you expect them to repay your kindness, isn't it just useless and only adds to your disappointment? Here, he's mainly talking about children. He says that many parents, indeed a significant number of them, find that the children they give birth to themselves. It's not just one child, not merely an only child, but rather many children. At that particular time, the revered His Holiness explicitly stated, these children. Nowadays in Tibetan area, I've heard that some people have more than a dozen children, some even have 15 children. As for these very precious children, in fact, parents are especially caring for them, protecting them, treating them just like the treasure of their own hearts, going to great lengths for them, giving them the best clothes to wear, the best food to eat, and all the best things to use, giving it all to them. As it is described in the words of my perfect teacher, actually parents are very pitiable. They give everything to their children, raising them with great care. When the child grows up and becomes strong and capable, at the time when parents hope their child will repay their kindness, things may not turn out as the parents originally hoped. Not only does the child fail to repay their kindness, but instead it causes them deep and profound disappointment. This kind of situation is actually very common indeed. Perhaps it's because news is so readily accessible and widely available nowadays that we often hear about truly unfilial children who, in extreme cases, even go so far as to tragically kill their own parents. It seems there was a particularly disturbing case where, solely for the sake of his parents' money and financial assets, the parents didn't give it to him. I think he was a university professor. When his parents refused, he ended up stabbing his father several times. He even carefully peeled off his own mother's scalp, piece by agonizing piece, slowly. He was extremely cruel, so sometimes he would act in a very harsh manner. Not everyone is like this, of course. Many people do repay their parents' kindness. But if we place all of our hopes, 100%, entirely on our children, that also carries a very significant and considerable risk. Because some children will indeed genuinely repay their parents' kindness and unwavering support, but some children not only don't repay it, in the end, they leave you utterly and completely disappointed. Sometimes, in our cherished traditions, In our customs, we deeply feel that if we are blessed with children, we should always, truly, indeed have hope. That when we grow old, when we die, or when we are sick, having a child means having someone to rely on. Many ordinary lay people, according to ancient tradition, especially in traditional China, this important tradition must be carefully upheld, and they strongly feel that their own cultural traditions must be continuously carried on. People have this kind of deep thinking, but at this point, we should also be prepared for both possibilities. This is actually not telling you simply not to have children at all in any way. Nowadays, many young people are also even unwilling to get married or have children anymore. Especially when I went to Singapore and many places in the UK, their mindset now is completely and utterly different from before. So many elderly people are especially worried about their later years and their future well-being. It's like this too, but no matter what, we really shouldn't force things too much. No matter what, in this entire world, truly, some children are indeed very good. But some children not only fail to repay their parents' kindness, they make life extremely difficult and challenging for their aging parents. In the end, they even selfishly take all of their parents' hard-earned wealth and possessions for themselves, and then they cruelly let their parents spend their entire remaining lives, eventually dying on the streets. This kind of phenomenon is actually quite common. Therefore, when it comes to certain situations in this world, we should make a special effort to understand them. At that specific time, His Holiness addressed all various aspects of this matter. In fact, many of the tragedies we encounter in real life have already been explained very clearly. Next, the 19th verse says, "In youth, among peers, we exchange smiles and glances, falling in love with affection in our eyes. Though we wish to be of one heart and stay together forever, joy and sorrow are unpredictable, and I feel sorrow in my life." His Holiness said that regarding certain emotions in the world, certain kinds of love in the world, the lives of many young people actually contain many dangers as well. He said that these young people, in the prime of their youth, among their peers, their emotions are especially intense. At the very beginning, their affection is profoundly deep and tender. Everything seems wonderful. They consistently use smiles and affectionate glances to interact with each other. Whether they are openly talking or doing other various things, there is a lot of deep intimacy between them. And their earnest wish has always been that they have a truly capable leader, perfectly united in common heart, an absolutely unified, single, harmonious mind. Their deeply cherished and profoundly heartfelt shared wish to always, truly, and eternally live together in perfect harmony and unwavering companionship. They swear solemn oaths to each other, making heartfelt promises to one another. They express this profound commitment through all kinds of meaningful actions, thinking, even if we cannot be born in the very same year, month, and day, at least we earnestly hope to die in the exact same year, month, and day. There seems to be a saying like this in the Han region, meaning that although we may not have come into this world at the same time, we must die together when the time comes. If we can't die together, then let me go first. Some people, when it comes to this matter, you die first. If you die first, what am I really supposed to do? You are so heartless. Then they start arguing, even fighting. This kind of thing often happens too. Some individuals are simply too obsessed with minor details. Every small thing becomes a major issue, making them especially fragile or incredibly sensitive. As a direct result, the entire relationship often becomes completely ruined. Recently, it appears there was a notable case in Toronto, Canada, where a Chinese student went there to study, ran into relationship problems, and ended up killing someone. It seems the victim was another Chinese student. Recently, the sentencing came down, 14 years in prison. A couple of days ago in the United Kingdom, there was also a Chinese student over there. It seems like a lot of Chinese people go to different countries. In that particular case, too, it seems a young girl was involved. She was worth over $100 million. Later, something horrible happened between her and her boyfriend. It's some kind of intense physical altercation or something like that. In the end, the girl was sadly, tragically killed. She died, right? He was also duly punished by law and finally harshly sentenced. At the beginning, they must have been really, really close. But in the end, for various unfortunate reasons, even the most precious thing, life itself, was tragically lost. It's really, truly tragic and also very pitiful. Actually, nowadays, a lot of young people might be influenced by all kinds of movies and TV shows, by this kind of culture, I suppose. They're heavily affected by modern culture and gradually start to blindly trade their genuine feelings at the terrible cost of their innocent lives. That's really, really, truly frightening. Actually, in our meaningful human lives, it should just be a part of life, but it doesn't have to be everything. If they could understand impermanence in advance and realize that things don't have any inherent meaning, and grasp some truths from different perspectives, then in the end, things might not turn out in that particular way. They might not end up in such a difficult and challenging situation, and such terrible tragedies would indeed not play out. So here, His Holiness says, in the end, will it turn into joy or into suffering? It's really quite challenging to predict. When His Holiness encounters these young individuals, particularly if they are especially stubborn and deeply attached to their own views, on the surface, everything might appear to be perfectly fine and in order. But in reality, behind it all, there is also a kind of control by causes and conditions. There is also a director orchestrating these causes and conditions. In the end, will what it brings be happiness or suffering? It's also really hard to say. So in our current world, especially for beings in the desire realm, and perhaps even more so in today's era of truly being entertained to an early death, if we rely on entertainment activities and entertainment culture, many of our fundamental mindsets have already drastically, completely changed. At this crucial time, many thoughtful people should seriously consider protecting themselves, at the very least protecting their own personal state of mind. We also absolutely shouldn't harm other individuals. This is a very important principle. Next, let's talk about the 20th verse. Long accompanied by an ever-changing family, like travelers who gather briefly at a marketplace, karmic debts cast us unpredictably into the 6 realms, not knowing where each other is now. Here, the main topic is about families. For example, many of us. When it comes to building family after finally getting married, couples think it will definitely last forever, peacefully growing old together, and so on. There are many solemn vows that young people earnestly make, and the idea is very beautiful, always hoping it will be like that. But in reality, very few actually grow old together. Most people get divorced while their hair is still black. There are all kinds of different situations that can arise. It's not necessarily a lifelong companionship. Some people leave while still alive. Some leave because of death, and some are separated by various circumstances in between. Nowadays, when it comes to some children, their parents have already divorced when the kids are still very young. Their parents are divorced. This phenomenon is becoming more and more common. Actually, when it comes to a family, it's like passers-by at a marketplace, like customers in a supermarket. They come together for a while, gather there for a bit, and then soon after, each individual goes their own separate way. This particular gathering is just momentary. In fact, in our human world, maybe some things, for example, people stay together for 40 or 50 years, or 20 or 30 years. But for some, the time they spend together is very short. Each of them has a kind of karmic force from past lives behind them, both good karma and bad karma. Even as a family unit, they can indeed create many different kinds of karma. It's truly quite hard to accurately say where one will ultimately be reborn. So, as a family, it is important to consider these aspects. Whether it's the relationship between husband and wife, between brothers, or between mother and child, whenever a family gathers together, we should cherish this connection. At a certain point, some of your family members may have already left this world, and you don't currently know where they are located now. For instance, if your very dear loved one has already passed away, you also don't know which of the 6 realms they are in now. When your parents were together, if there was a lot of arguing at the time, after your parents pass away, it's hard to say exactly which of the 6 realms they are in currently at this moment. It's really, really hard to truly know. So when we are together, whether it's with our parents or our spouse, when family members are together, we must do our best to get along harmoniously and peacefully. The other day in Yunnan, when I was giving a teaching session to some lay practitioners, I specifically said that each and every one of us actually plays many, many different roles. For example, when we are at work, in front of your boss, you just play a single specific role. And with your subordinates or colleagues, your individual roles are all quite different. For example, I am a dedicated teacher. At school, to my students, I am their homeroom teacher. I am quite important in that role. But when it comes to my colleagues and other teachers, I am in a peer relationship with them. I need to learn how to do things as a colleague. And when it comes to the school leadership, I am a dedicated and committed teacher who is their subordinate within the organizational structure. At home, I have my beloved and supportive family members. For example, I am someone who has elderly parents living above me and young children residing below me, and also several siblings situated in between these two generations. So, with each and every individual person, I really need to learn how to properly adapt to them. Otherwise, if I alone truly can't handle any interpersonal relationship well, then what will happen? It will bring a lot of pain to myself, even for us as very dedicated practitioners, including all our Dharma friends here at Larunga. I hope everyone can learn that although we are like passers-by and interpersonal relationships are impermanent, even if they are impermanent, we should still do our best. This is very important. When a passerby goes to the supermarket to buy something, if you steal something and then just leave, it could be potentially dangerous. So even shopping has its own rules. What we're talking about here is not that just because things are impermanent, we don't need to cherish them. That's not what it means. Now, look at what's discussed next, including the profound relationship between teacher and disciple. It's the same. Next, when talking about the teacher-disciple relationship, it says, though one wishes never to part from the guru, who can stop the force of past karma, just like cuckoos gathering in the south, even Vajra companions are destined to part. He says, although some of us are unwilling to leave our guru, rely on the guru, may I never be separated from my teacher, life after life. Many people think this way. Karmic destiny, karma from past lives, where it places you, hard to say. You recite, may I never be separated from my teacher, life after life. Before you die, you might leave tomorrow. Some people leave while alive, some leave causes and conditions. Some depart because they develop wrong views. There are all sorts of situations. It's just like the cuckoo, which is about to migrate south. At this time, their gathering is only temporary. Even though today they gather on this tree, tomorrow they will all indeed fly off to many different places. In the same way, by a guru's side, the Vajra friends in a Dharma center will inevitably part ways, will inevitably leave eventually. Just as it is mentioned in the Treasury of Pith instructions, when we are together, we must truly cherish this connection. This is not to say we never be separated forever. No one can prevent this happening. This is a fundamental and undeniable law of nature. I have traveled to a few countries all over the world, for example, Europe and also the Netherlands, as well as New Zealand, Australia, the United States, Canada, Japan, and so on. Disciples of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, Han, Tibetans, and others are everywhere. After arriving there, truly, the power of karmic winds is inconceivable. The wind of karma has blown many of them to every corner of the earth. I asked, how did you get here? I first initially went to India, but I couldn't actually stay in India for a while, and somehow I eventually ended up here from somewhere else entirely, quite unexpectedly. And then I asked, how did you get here? Oh, I first went to Japan, but after arriving in Japan, it seemed like it wouldn't work out there. So I came to the United States. Everyone has different karma, so for example, today we are gathered in this place. However, each individual person possesses their own unique karma, and in the end, it is much like the countless thousands of individual leaves found scattered beneath a vast tree. When the wind blows at last, each leaf drifts off to a different place, just like that. Therefore, everything is indeed impermanent. Although many of us make all these such aspirations and wish for this through countless lifetimes, in reality, the power of one's karma is extremely, extremely strong and powerful. You never truly know where it will ultimately push you. Therefore, when you have something, you should cherish it. And once you part with it, you also know that this is the nature of impermanence. Next, let's talk about the 22nd verse, which says, it's hard to please the ruler above and hard to satisfy the subordinates below. The trivial, everyday matters of samsara never truly end. Why not simply rest at ease and find some peace? Here he says that we worldly people, if we are truly in this world, we should carefully consider our actions and their implications. Of course, here it is from the perspective of monastics, from the standpoint of advanced practitioners. One develops great weariness toward the trivial matters of samsara. A deep sense of aversion arises. Why does this aversion arise? Because when you show respect to your superiors, such as the highly respected chairman or your esteemed teachers, no matter how hard you work like an ox or a horse, and serve them all truly wholeheartedly, they are still not pleased. It is very difficult to please those above you, no matter how well I treat them. Even if I use my body, speech, and mind and express all my goodwill toward them, they are never truly happy, so I just give up. If I can't make them happy, I'll just leave and ignore them. It's really hard to please those above you. And then, when it comes to subordinates, No matter how much effort you put into supporting them, even if you care for them every day, showing concern and being attentive in every way, and look after them with meticulous care, they still aren't happy. They compare themselves with others and all sorts of things come up. So it always feels like there's nothing you can do. It's very hard to please your subordinates. So whether it's your relationship with superiors, subordinates, or peers, dealing with people is really, really very difficult. If you spend all your days getting caught up in these daily things, you might end up with no time left for your own spiritual practice. So wouldn't it be better to just go somewhere quiet, open your recitation book in peace, and let go of everything else, abandoning all concerns? Isn't that a better way? But actually, this is more suitable for advanced practitioners. For now, you shouldn't do this. Otherwise, whenever you encounter a little difficulty at work, even just a bit of trouble, didn't the precious His Holiness say so? You can't manage relationships with your superiors, nor can you please those below you, and even your family members one after another. There was once someone who said, "I want to become a monk." I asked, "Why do you want to become a monk?" He said, "My parents at home dislike me. My wife dislikes me, and even my children dislike me. Now I have nowhere to turn for support, so I want to become a monk." But thinking like this is also not right, is it? Once I was teaching the 37 practices of a bodhisattva somewhere. There were two individuals whose personal relationship wasn't particularly good at all. The husband was seriously planning to become a Buddhist monk. I think I've definitely told you about this particular situation before, haven't I? After I finished teaching, the husband said, "Didn't Khenpo just explicitly state a bodhisattva leaves his homeland?" His wife's expression changed. There are 37 verses in the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. Out of the 37, you don't mention any. You only talk about constantly leaving your dear homeland, so you just want to totally abandon me. So the two of them suddenly started having major problems again. That's why sometimes when we openly talk about really leaving our precious homeland, or trying to please those above us, it's just not possible to make them happy either. And those below aren't happy either. So, according to His Holiness, it's very difficult in this world. It's better to go to a quiet place, settle down and practice diligently. You don't need to worry about pleasing others. Whether they're happy or not is their own business. Just focus on practicing well. This is what makes a top-level practitioner. There are people like this, but nowadays, my suggestion is, because for some people, whether it's at home or in life, nowadays when many people are under a lot of pressure, they just ignore everything else and immediately go off to become a monk or to practice. In the end, their families are left in a pitiful situation too. From the perspective of Mahayana bodhicitta, if you yourself can't become an especially remarkable practitioner, then you give up everything. It really does happen that, for example, children can't continue their studies, and parents are often left truly unable to completely manage the situation, it seems. Especially after someone has indeed already started a family, both families end up falling apart. It's extremely difficult. So still, if some people want to become monastics, even now in Han Chinese monasteries, there aren't many proper places for study and contemplation. If there is no study and contemplation and you just wear the monastic robes and wander around everywhere, you end up like Ji Gong the monk. So I think we still need to pay attention to this. When you feel a bit of pressure in life, don't immediately think about becoming a monastic. Otherwise, this is what is called, as Patrul Rinpoche said, this is called a temporary renunciation mind, an unstable renunciation mind. This kind of renunciation is still somewhat inauthentic. So our suggestion is, when you truly think about ordaining, just because you encounter a bit of suffering, that's actually the spirit shown in many popular movies, but it's not the genuine, authentic intention to become a monastic. Generally speaking, we always ask everyone to still try their best to show respect to those above them. If you really don't want to show respect, just pretend, I genuinely like the leader, you're really quite great, you speak very well indeed, your management skills are truly excellent. Whenever I see you, I feel especially happy. It even truly seems like when you eat your delicious food, you genuinely enjoy it so very much. I also want to learn from you in the future to eat just like you do. Wow. For some leaders, it's actually better to maintain a flattering relationship, even if you dislike them in your heart. Doesn't that make you two-faced? But sometimes skillful means are very important. Otherwise, for us Buddhists nowadays, including Khenpos and Khenmos, spread the Dharma. If they're too straightforward, they run into obstacles everywhere. They have no idea how to handle things, just say whatever comes to mind. When they go to a Dharma center, there might be good opportunities, but they say, you don't study and contemplate Dharma here. Study, contemplation, and practice are Buddhism. And with that, they've offended others. There were so many good opportunities, but with just one sentence, nowadays, many people are very sensitive. Just hearing a single sentence, or even before the sentence is finished, even halfway through, they're already very furious. It's very dangerous. So some of us Dharma teachers also really need to use skillful means. We need to know what to say in which situation and what kind of language to use. Sometimes even the words of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas need to be delivered with skillful means. Within skillful means, there are definitive and non-definitive teachings, right? Next, I'll just explain one or two verses. Perhaps I just spoke a little bit too much earlier. Subduing enemies only increases their numbers. However, genuinely caring for cherished loved ones brings forth both profound joy and unavoidable suffering. Fine food and frequent feasts only truly increase impurity. Now I am quite happy to live the simple life of a beggar. In our own daily lives, the more we try to subdue our enemies, the more they increase. It's like the past between India and Pakistan. The more they fought, the more enemies. If we protect our loved ones, the more things to deal with, both joys and sorrows. For example, if I want to care for my family members, my younger brothers and sisters, older sisters and brothers and so on, more I care about them. The more they become attached, and the more thoughts of separation arise. Then things just keep piling up and getting more complicated. If you eat the finest, most luxurious foods, and the more you eat, it just leads to more and more impure waste, and you get fatter and fatter. Your blood pressure rises, and you feel increasingly uncomfortable. So eating more is not good. Subduing more enemies is also not good. Caring for more and more relatives is also not good. It's better to go to a quiet place and be someone who is content and has few desires. Even if you don't have many possessions, just being a good practitioner is enough. That's also what he means here. Beggar here doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a real beggar. Generally, in ascetic practices, some practitioners are also referred to as beggars, right? If you care for your friends and relatives with all your heart, it may not necessarily be out of genuine feeling. If you devote yourself wholeheartedly to new companions, isn't it also a joy to be alone without company? He says for some people, they care for others wholeheartedly, caring for these friends as if they were their own heart. But actually, when these friends respond to you, it's not necessarily with genuine feeling. They are very much quite likely to be truly fickle and may entirely wholeheartedly focus on other so-called young people or even other individuals. So no matter how well you treat them, they may not treat you the same way in return. It's better to be in a place without friends and just practice very well on your own time, at your own pace. In the past, Master Jigwang also said, if one person practices, it leads to Buddhahood. If two people practice together, it creates good connections. But if there are three or more, it increases the causes of greed, anger, and ignorance. It seems this was mentioned when teaching opening the door to mind training. So sometimes living alone in seclusion, there are no worries, no suffering. But at dark night, there can be a bit of real fear. Will a hungry, dangerous tiger come? Will a terrifying demon suddenly truly show up? Will someone actually knock on the door? There's a little bit of fear, you know. Should I perhaps tell some spooky ghost stories? All right, let's just stop right here.
Badna Sodargye.Want Badna Sodargye.Want